Alright, welcome to the instructional video of how to set up OBS so that you can switch between screens of competitors at the next TCO. So what you're seeing here is kind of the finished version of what we're going to be doing. Couple of things to note. You're going to be looking at this section, which is called the scene section, titled right here, and this section sources. You'll see like this. If you only see one window here at the front and you want it to look more like mine to follow along, make sure that you have click studio mode. So if you don't click studio mode, it's 1. If you do, click it, it's 2. This will just come in handy once we go live. But if you want to look more like what I'm doing, that's what you have to do. So first off, what you're going to do, if you just logged into OBS, you're going to want to create a new scene collection. So, a new set of like all these scenes that you see here. That way you can refer to it year after year. So I'm going to create a new one. Let's just call this like TCO template or something. And we'll click OK. So that creates this new bit right here. Okay, so what each one of these is basically the screen that you'll flip to every time you click a button. So what we want to do is create a scene for every competitor that is going to be on the live show. So to do that, we're going to first create a scene. And we're going to create it, let's say we're creating tourist scene. So we're going to do tourist. And, you want to name it something that, if you clicked it, you know exactly what's going to be in there, right? So under tourist scene, we're going to need 3 layers. The first one obviously being the lower third. So in order to do that, we go to our sources section here, click plus, click image, and then we got to label it. We could just do tourist again, but it won't allow us to do that because we already named our scene tourist. So what I do to differentiate it is just do _LT for lower third and press OK. It'll ask you to browse to the file that you're looking for, which I have over here. All right, so your banner might look a little bit different, but that's how you import the banner. Press OK. It'll end up at the top, but all you have to do is click it and drag it down to the bottom, and you're all set with that. The next 2 sources that you're going to put in, the last 2 sources, are going to be screen 1 and screen 2. You're going to want 2 screens because you're going to want to be able to flip to either or depending on how the live stream's going. Sometimes tourists might appear on your second screen. Sometimes it might appear on your first screen. You got to be ready for it. So in order to do that, let me pop up an image here. This is what is kind of my setup. Obviously, it's not the Zoom screens that we usually have because I'm not currently doing a show. But each of these screens represents one Zoom screen. So on the left, you see ESPN. On the right, Mashable. So the thing to note here is that the left browser, these browsers have to be different. Okay? We realize that you can't have 2 Zoom windows open in browser if they're the same browser. It just doesn't work. So for me, my left one is a Chrome browser and the right one is a Brave browser. So once you get the Zoom link, paste it into the URL for both of these browsers and make sure you're opening the Zoom link in in the browser, not in the application itself. You will be logging into the application itself separately, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So for these, go ahead to the URL. Now what I like to do is be specific with the naming of your Zoom account, I guess, when you get in there, because it'll make it easier to find. So what I did was capital ZZ dash, and then I would do, for the left one, I would do screen 1. So it'd be ZZ dash screen 1, and then for the right, ZZ dash screen 2. That way I can differentiate them and I know which one I am going to be looking at. Okay, so knowing that, That is on my second screen. Okay, so I have the OBS on my laptop screen, and then I have those two browsers open on a second screen that's active right next to me. Okay, so let's go back to OBS. Now we want to create the captures. So what we do is we go back to sources here, we click the plus sign, we're going to go to display capture. Okay, and then this one I'm going to put screen 1. So this layer is always going to be focused on screen 1. I say OK. Now as you see here, it says which display are we looking at. The one that it originally is at right now is my laptop screen, and the second one is my secondary screen, which you can see here, and that's the one I'm going to be focused on. Obviously it's showing both, right? I don't want it to show both. I just want it to show the left screen. Okay, when you are trying this out, try it out with someone that is sharing their screen so that you can crop it to the exact specifications that you need. So here I'll do a rough showing you of how to crop it. You want to go crop, you want to go manual, and then it'll tell you how much you want to crop from each side. So what you can do is just like click in one of them, and what you do is like just scroll. Like I'm scrolling up right now, and as you can see, the image is getting bigger. There you go. It's finally like cropping it a little bit. I want to get like some of it here. From the right, I just want to go crazy high probably. And again, what I'm doing is just like I'm scrolling. I'm just scrolling up to increase that number while I'm hovered in that box. Okay, so I'll speed this up a little bit just so we can keep going. Okay, so I have it cropped out to where I want it right now. Obviously, these dimensions aren't going to be the same as yours, so get it so that it looks good for screen number 1. So I'm going to say okay. When you do that, it kind of expands it for you inside the box, so it's kind of over shared. All this striped area, that's part of it. So what I do is I right click on the video, go to transform, and then fit to screen. Doing that will actually bring in everything. Okay, so as you can see, it's over the lower thirds, and that's because the lower thirds is last in this layer list. So I want it to be at the top of the layer. So I'm just going to drag towards to the top, and so it puts it over top here. So for each one, you're going to want tourist, or you're going to want the lower third, you're going to want screen 1, and then you're going to want screen 2. All right, so give me a second and I'll put up screen 2 for you real quick. We'll just go over it again. Display capture, screen 2. Okay, so here we go. Once again, I'm going to need to transform, fit to screen, and now it's on the screen. And I'm going to drag screen 2 to the bottom. So what's going to happen pretty much is that you're always going to have one of these screens on and one of them off. So if tourist is on screen 2, this is the view it's going to have. If he's on 1, that's the screen it's going to have. One of them's going to be on, one of them's going to be off. And the Stream Deck will make this much easier rather than just clicking around. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do to set up one person's screen or one scene. To get the other one, it gets easier from here, and I'll just show you how to kind of duplicate that. So what you want to do is right-click tourist and do duplicate. And for this one, we'll do Piotr. He's another popular guy. So now I want to create the Piotr one. So with this, I want to right-click. I want to rename it because you don't want it to be the same name as tourist. Replace tourist with Piotr. And then renaming it isn't enough. You're going to want to double-click it because the file is still tourist. And you want to change it over to Piotr. And there you go. You don't even have to drag it. It stays right there. As for screen 1 and screen 2, that is totally fine. It's still looking at those parts of the screen. So it'd be screen 1, screen 2. Super easy. There you go. You just created your second scene of a competitor. So you're just going to copy and paste that. You're going to duplicate that 8 times until you get to where you need to be. All right. So with that being said, let me switch over to what I am currently working with here. So as you can see, the screens they're already kind of cropped out to where they need to be. But we have 8 of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now here I created a scene called whiteboard. This is going to be for the whiteboard room. So in Zoom, you'll have a room that you can go into called whiteboard. And so if you go into that room, you'll click it on Stream Deck, and here you see there's no lower thirds, you just have the screen, which is great. Because if the whiteboard's going to be on screen 1, you just have to go to screen 1. If it's on screen 2, go to screen 2. Pretty self-explanatory. Next is the leaderboard, and it's the same concept. It's pretty much the same thing. I just separated it out because there may be a time you want to go from leaderboard to whiteboard, which means screen 1 to screen 2 or screen 2 to screen 1. So that's the reasoning for having a whiteboard scene, a leaderboard scene. If you have any videos that you need to play, this would be the area to do it. You would want to create one scene per video. As you can see, the source here is only one video. So that's all you need for that. I have an empty one here just in case. So I have one so that I can queue up and I know, hey, this one's dark. So this is my placeholder. So I would go empty and then I would transition over to the video. So that pretty much wraps up all the scenes that you really need for a live algo event specifically. So yeah, so now let's take a look at more of what you need to know about OBS. There is a, if you're working with a third party and they're sending you an RMTP that they want you to stream to, this is where you would do it. You would go to settings, you go to stream, and then you would enter in their RTMP and then their stream key as well. And once you do that, once you press start streaming, they should be able to see what is happening on this right side right here. Okay. Now, how do you use all of this? If you were using it without the Stream Deck, this is basically what would happen. For example, let's say I'm on BQI 343. Right now, this is basically saying BQI is up and he's on screen 2. So I'm going to show screen 2. I'm going to hide screen 1. And, I have the lower third here. And then from BQI, I want to load him now, which it seems he already is. So let's go to Ecknerwall. I want to go to Ecknerwall after BQI. BQI is on screen 1, it looks like. So I'm going to switch Ecknerwall, who's on screen 2. So as you can see, the images in the background are different. So I want to go BQI to Ecknerwall. The way I would do that, I clicked Ecknerwall. He's in my preview screen, so people can't see this yet. I can keep messing with this as much as I want. People won't see it until I press the transition button. And once I do that, it'll switch it. It'll take Ecknerwall over here, and it'll bring BQI over here. We had changed BQI, so this may look a little more familiar here. Okay, so that's how you do it through clicking, but now let's take a look at how you would do that through Stream Deck. So let's bring in Stream Deck. You can ignore pretty much everything here. I'm going to be focusing on the first 4 that you see here. Group 1, Group 2, Whiteboard, TCO videos. So this is Stream Deck. There are things that you can pretty much import into Stream Deck. If you want to use OBS, that is something that you could add to Stream Deck. So once you do that, you'll have all of these options of what you can do. Let's take a look at Group 1. Oh, I'm sorry. I know this might be a little new for you. You'd first want to create a folder. Group 1 right now is a folder that I've created. To do that, you just right-click inside here. You create a folder, and then I called it Group 1, and then which you title it here. And then you can change the image if you go to here and say like create new icon or open the icon library to add an icon. So I did this for me more of like a visual. You can put whatever you want there, or else it'll just be a folder like this. So you created a folder, Group 1. We're going inside of it. Now, what you can see here is on the top row, these are scene selectors. Okay, so BQI 343 is this scene right here. So, and what I did to do that was go to under the OBS Studio, you go to Scene, and you take it and you drag it to that spot, whatever spot you want to drag it to. When you drag it, it asks you for a title, so you got to name this button. So I'm naming it BQI. Then it'll ask you to change the scene. All right, so you change the scene, and it'll give you all the scenes that you created in OBS. Okay, so you do scene, and then preview is what you want. Okay, that takes care of that. Now what happens below are these. Again, I changed the icons to make it easier for me to see what's on and what's off. So if I click screen 1 now, I just turned it off, and it turned red. Turn it on. Turn it off. And as you can see on the bottom in the sources area, you see it turning on and off. So they're linked, right? Okay. So you always want one of them to be on and one of them to be off. So these are working as columns here. Okay. So the way to get this screen 1, this is source visibility, because look what it's doing, right? If I keep clicking it on and off, the visibility of that source is going on and off. So that's what we're doing here. So you take source visibility, you put it on top of whatever button you want to put it on. Once you do that, it will ask you for a title. It'll ask you for the scene this specific button is for, and for what source. So as you can see here, oh, things got flipped around a little bit. So this is a good practice. So scene is BQI, that's correct. Source would be screen 1, which for some reason isn't popping up here. All right, so we'll kind of refresh it. BQI. Interesting. All right, so if we go to screen 1, source visibility, we want to make sure the scene is on BQI and the source screen 1. Then we come here, BQI screen 2. Again, you can change the icons. I went with this red and yellow one. There are a bunch of different ones that you can choose from the library. Just explore what works for you. And again, so you're going to do this multiple times for all competitors. You can only, in mine, you can only fit 4 per folder, which is why I created 2 groups. So I had group 1, and then I have group 2 here. We got maroon. And then as we look through, I just make sure screen 1, okay, screen 2, that everything is linked correctly. Because so whenever you're clicking your buttons, you want to make sure that it's going, that it's activating the correct layer. Okay. And then you have this transition button. So basically, what we have here, and I know you can't see my Stream Deck, but basically the physical Stream Deck is mimicked from what you see on the screen here. So if I wanted to, for example, bring up Maroon Curry, I'm clicking the Maroon Curry scene on the Stream Deck, click. So as you can see, it changed the preview. And right now I see on my Stream Deck that screen 1 is activated, screen 2 is deactivated. However, for this example, let's say maroon is actually on screen 2. So I would have clicked maroon scene to bring him up. So you see his lower third in there. And then you do click off screen 1, click on screen 2. Okay? So again, you're getting everything set before you move it over. For this example, I'll actually keep it on screen 1 so it looks different than what you see over here on screen 2. So Eknerwall is currently on screen. You know, the hosts are talking about it. And then whenever you want to switch over, you press the transition button on your Stream Deck. So we just transition, and there you go. It is now over here on the program side, which is what everyone else is seeing. And there you have it. I did realize that I didn't tell you where this transition was. Obviously, if you go to the OBS side of Stream Deck, scroll down, you'll see transition here. Just drag that transition button to wherever you want it. You want it to appear in each of these folders. Group 1, Group 2, transitions here. And this one I labeled whiteboard, and this contains the leaderboard and the whiteboard, which we went over earlier. So if I had the leaderboard, it takes away all of the lower thirds. I just have to choose which screen is showing the leaderboard at that time. All right, and you have the transition button there as well. I'll just do a transition there. And that's pretty much how you use Stream Deck with OBS. So now I will explain how this works with Zoom. And for this, since I am not doing this live currently and I don't have access to Zoom, I'll just explain it through images, and that hopefully will work. All right, so the Zoom setup. First, as I explained before, you would want to have two browsers. The two browsers that, I showed you earlier. Go to the same Zoom link. For one, screen one, you do ZZ-screen one. So now you know that's screen one. By putting ZZ, it'll always appear at the bottom of the room whenever you're switching between rooms. So you'll see ZZ screen one, and then on the other one, ZZ-screen two. You will also need to log into Zoom a third time. And from here, you're going to log in through the link, but this time say launch in Zoom. So you're actually going to launch through the application in this one. Typically, it will launch with your name, since if you've logged in with Zoom before. So that one, you would need to have the co-host role associated to it. So whoever's running your Zoom as host will need to give you co-host access. By having co-host access, you will have access to the break rooms, and you'll have access to be able to move people from room to room. Okay, so for example, I have ZZ Screen 1 and ZZ Screen 2. I have the break room window open. So I would have the Nick Castillo Zoom, which is the application Zoom, has the co-host role. By having that role, I will be able to move whoever I want from room to room. I'm only going to be focused on moving ZZ Screen 1 and ZZ Screen 2. So once the room's open, I'm going to pop ZZ Screen 1 into one room, ZZ Screen 2 into another, and just kind of test around to make sure that everything's looking fine. The way to do that, you're going to click the break rooms button at the bottom. It'll bring up a little scrolling table, essentially, of where everyone is and which rooms they're in. And in order to move people, you just highlight one of them, being screen 1 or screen 2, and then you'll have the option to move it. So move to, and then you can move it to whatever room that you want. So here's what it would look like if we're looking at tourist screen and we want to go to Piotr screen. First, I would have tourist playing, so it would be in my program section. I would click Piotr on the screen selection on Stream Deck, and I would make sure it's on screen, the proper screen. So he's on screen 2 for me. So I'm going to do turn off screen 1, turn on screen 2. And then, actually, scratch that. Let's go back a little bit. So I have tourist currently playing live. So his lower third is there. You're seeing what he's doing. But you want to go ahead and see Piotr next. So what you do is you move the screen that tourist is not on, right? Because you don't want it to move tourist's screen. So whatever screen tourist is on, you want to move the other room. So I'm going to move, if tourist was on screen 2, you would want to move screen 1 in the breakout room to Piotr. Once you do that, it'll start loading. Once it loads, click Piotr, click the button for Piotr, and then switch it to screen 1, and then turn off screen 2. Okay, remember, only one can be on at a time. So one more time, you move the screen 1 user of Zoom to Piotr. It's going to load in. Once it fully loads in, click the Piotr button on your Stream Deck. That'll bring it up in the preview. It's got his lower third. Make sure it's the right screen. So you may have to turn on or turn off a button for the screen. And then when you're ready, you just press the transition button. And there you go. You have successfully gone from tourist to Piotr. And that's pretty much how you're going to handle everything from there. So even if you want to switch to whiteboard, the whiteboard, you're going to have to take the screen, move it to the whiteboard room, and then transition it over when ready. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, you can have Jesse reach out to me via email, and I can try to help out as much as I can. But you pretty much have the basics of what you need to be able to pull off what I did in 2022. All right? So good luck, and go Top Coder.